Hello, students. Today we will learn some legal aspects of psychiatry which are very important in day to day practice. However, many don't give much attention towards this. Now we shall look at ethical standards in practice, especially in psychiatry. Patient doctor relationship has certain rules. The doctor should be sympathetic, empathetic, cooperative, non threatening, and most importantly, he should be neutral. Since doctor and patient meet frequently, some different dynamics take place. One is transference, wherein the patient unconsciously and inappropriately starts displacing those pattern of behavior and emotional reactions on treating physician which originated with the significant others from earlier life or childhood. Example, father, brother, husband, or maybe aggressor. And countertransference is similar phenomena where therapist's behavior and emotional reaction towards a patient. There is a boundary in doctor-patient relationship, but boundary violation takes place either by transference or countertransference, or it may be intentional. Two types of boundary violations are there: non sexual, where accepting a gift, financial interactions, sharing a business. Another is sexual boundary violation. How gradually sexual boundary violation takes place. First, neutrality starts getting eroded. The therapist starts taking special interest. More time is being spent on non therapeutic topics. He starts disclosing other patients' information or discloses self married life or problems. Touching, then sexualized touching, going for lunch or drink, stops billing, dating begins, and then the sex occurs. Reasons for such boundary violation: mismanagement of transference and countertransference, personality, illness related or situation related vulnerabilities in some patients and doctors, lack of training in mental health plan, or lack of awareness of risks of such relationship, or it may be due to impaired therapist and vulnerable patient. This is an example of boundary violation. Can one have sex with the patient? The answer is big no. Next, very important is confidentiality. Reassure that confidentiality will be maintained. It's a patient's right also. Confidentiality can be breached in certain situations like information may be harmful to the patient or others. Patient's compliance for treatment is poor, or when patient threatens self harm. If information is shared to fellow physicians, staff, and medical students for treatment and academic purposes, it is not a breach, but it is mandatory when court orders for it. But it should be discussed with the patient what information should be shared and what should not be. Note that patient's information cannot be given to anybody if they apply for it through Right to Information Act. But child abuse, sexual abuse should be reported to the appropriate agencies. Don't discuss about patient information on social media. Some people might hack it. Another situation where confidentiality can be breached is where dangerousness is evident in patients' actions who are holding jobs like doctors, drivers, firefighters, defense personnel, or who operate dangerous machinery. Now, malpractice or medical negligence. Medical negligence is doing something that a physician with the duty to care for the patient should not have done, or failing to do something that should have been done as defined by any standard practicing guidelines. In malpractice suits, 4 Ds should be proved. First of all, prove that the doctor patient relationship was established. A patient taking advice on radio program by a doctor cannot be considered as in doctor patient relationship. Now, those 4 Ds are duty to care was a must phenomena, and there is a deviation from the standard care, and damage to the patient has occurred, and the damage has occurred directly because of the deviation. Another form of negligence is faulty prescriptions. When you are exceeding drug dosages, or when you are failing to adjust therapeutic levels, unreasonable mixing of drugs, that is polypharmacy, giving non indicated drugs, or failure to disclose side effects or alternate therapies. Intentional thoughts. In psychiatry practice, refraining and depriving freedom is common when patient is violent or uncooperative. Patient might sue a physician for battery or false imprisonment. Similarly, touching, sexually touching, or having sex in the name of the therapy, one will be liable for both civil and criminal suits. Discussion of sensitive and private issues are very common in psychiatry, but that may lead to invasion of privacy suit. And disclosing information leads to breach of confidentiality or lead to defamation cases. Remember, some of your actions or inactions may not be covered by your insurance. Now, very important is before you start treatment, take an informed consent, and the following information should be given: the probable or tentative diagnosis or the nature of the problem, the type of the treatment, consequences like risk and benefits, alternate therapies with risks and benefits. You may have to also give prognosis with or without treatment. It is difficult to tell about prognosis, especially in schizophrenia. It is also important to take separate consents for ECT, disulfiram treatment in de-addiction of alcohol, or any other procedures. Now, how mental illness affects their civil responsibilities. As per the law, an insane cannot manage his property, or he cannot sign any contract, or he is not competent to be a witness. He cannot give consent for sex, drug trials, organ donation, and any other responsible acts. He cannot even write a will, or he cannot have a license for the gun. But there are logical arguments. Mere diagnosis will not make one incompetent. Past admission or someone who is under treatment also are not the reasons to be incompetent. If he has recovered and has good judgment, reasoning, and makes appropriate decisions for specific tasks and situations, he is competent. Now, marriage, mental illness, and the law. When one of the parties is suffering from mental illness, which is incurable or of such a severity and periodicity, and is not capable of maintaining the roles of marriage, including procreation or taking care of the children, and the other party cannot be reasonably expected to live with the person. Legally, two consequences happen. If the illness was there before the marriage and the aggrieved person goes to the court declares it null and void. Null and void means the marriage did not take place at all. Whereas, if the illness has occurred after marriage and the aggrieved party goes to the court dissolves the marriage and divorce is granted. Now, as far as suicide is concerned, law says if suicide is foreseeable, then it can be prevented. So it is very important to take a detailed history, assess risk, and take appropriate preventive and curative measures, and all should be recorded. Now, how law views suicide victim? Suicide is covered by IPC 309, but its criminality was frequently changed. Before 1994, it was punishable. In 1994, it was decriminalized, means no punishment for that. In 1996, it was again criminalized and the person is punishable with simple imprisonment for a term or fine or both. But recently, in 2017, as per New Mental Health Care Act, Section 115, it presumes the person under severe stress and because of mental illness and advocates treatment. Abatement to suicide is covered by IPC 306. In case of violent patient, psychiatrists are responsible if violent patient is not controlled, if such patient is discharged prematurely, and if patient causes damage to public property and harms others. So, psychiatrist has to take appropriate measures. Hospitalize the patient. Give enough dosage of psychotropics. Adjust the dosages and inform the police. Physical restraint, but write down justification for physical restraint. Now, I briefly tell you the case history of Tarasov murder. One Mr. Prosenjit Poddar from West Bengal entered California University in September 1967. He came across a girl called Tatiana Tarasov. They dated many times. Poddar thought she would marry him, but she refused. Poddar went into depression, who was treated by a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist. Gradually he improved, but during his therapy, he had mentioned that he would kill Tatiana. Therapist reported to police, but police let him free as he looked totally normal. But on 27th October 1969, Poddar killed Tatiana with kitchen knife. Parents sued university and California Supreme Court gave famous judgment. In any homicidal patient, it is the duty of a psychiatrist to warn the victim. This is called Tarasov 1, which was given in 1976. In 1982, another verdict was given that is called Tarasov 2, not only to duty to the warn, but it is a psychiatrist's duty to protect the victim also. Now, criminal responsibility. Here law presumes everybody is sane unless proved otherwise. As per McNaughton Rules 1843, nothing is an offense which is done by a person who at the time of doing it, by reason of unsoundness of mind, is incapable of knowing the nature of the act or that he is doing what is either wrong or contrary to the law. Indian IPC section 84 is a direct descendant of McNaughton rules. Now the reduced responsibility because of disinhibition or reduced self-control or irresistible impulses. It's not applicable in India. Reduced responsibility for the crimes during intoxication is also not present in India. But IPC 85 section says if a person is intoxicated and commits a crime which is not punishable provided he was administered alcohol without his knowledge or against his will. And offences during alcohol with delirium are covered by section 84 IPC. Reduced responsibilities for the crimes committed during premenstrual dysphoria are considered in England and Canada. In India, I came across one such verdict by Rajasthan High Court on the internet. As a general rule, an insane cannot be convicted, he cannot be tried, he cannot be punished, and he cannot be executed. Mental Health Act 1987, which has been replaced by New Mental Health Care Act 2017, mainly cover mental health authorities, mental health establishments, hospitalization and discharge procedures, human rights and advance directive, and review boards. Now, rights of the persons with mental illness. Each person has a right to access mental health care, but he has also a right to refuse except in emergencies. He has right to community living. He has a right to protection from cruel, inhuman, degrading treatment. He has right to equality and non-discrimination. He has right to information and right to confidentiality. He has a right to personal contacts and communication. Means whenever he is in the mental asylums or nursing homes, he should be given a right to talk on phone or email or WhatsApp. He has a right to legal aid. Means he can make complaints about deficiencies in services. Now, certain procedures are prohibited, like unmodified ECT, ECT in minors, but when you are justified to give ECT in the minors, you have to take consent of the guardians. Sterilization of men and women as a means of treatment of mental illness. Restraints and solitary confinements. Restraints can be used in justifiable cases, but it should be recorded. Now, these are the homework for you. You can submit it when your college resumes. Thank you.